everybody. I apologize in advance if a cat jumps on up in the view of this, or if you hear a kid screaming or my dog's barking. Everybody decided it was a great time to go play outside right now. But obviously I can't control that. So social class and ableism, what we talked about um, this module. I have a lot to say, especially when it comes to ableism and the fact that we were talking about um, the factors that affect students with disabilities. And the reason I say that is because one of my best friends from high school, who actually came to college with me, had cerebral palsy and was considered a quadriplegic. Although there were certain things she could do on her own, she lacked enough mobility to where she was termed as a quadriplegic. And SFA was a very, obviously, if anybody's been on campus, it's a very disability friendly campus, and that's not the issue. But what was discussed in the readings, I can attest to the fact that it's so true. That it is A, time consuming, B, expensive, and most of the time students with disabilities or the students in the lowest income quartile tend to have the highest rate of disability. So I remember working with she won't care, with my friend Whitney, working with her, trying to get places. You have to do things a certain way, do this a certain way. Some buildings, especially at SFA, they're older, so yes, they might be accessible, but it might be you have to go a certain path, a certain direction to get to certain places. A lot of paperwork, a lot of her, for example, her power chair, tens of thousands of dollars. And that's not even talking about going to school. She had to specifically stay in Lumberjack Village in a specific room, which we all know is the most expensive place for a student to live at SFA. And so, of course, there were certain things that were like taken care of for her, due to DARS and all things of that nature. It's just, I saw what she went through, and I saw how difficult and time consuming it was for her to try to handle anything on her own, because she was very independent. We were from the same small town, so we were about 4 hours away from home. So she relied on me heavily, which was obviously fine, but you get a better insight of what somebody goes through on a day-to-day basis dealing with a disability in higher education, when you're in situations like that. So the next thing is class in America and the four questionable beliefs. This is just based off of things that I have seen, heard, watched, read, that have been at my institution. Most of these I definitely don't I definitely don't believe in or have a belief of, but the one I really would like to argue with the most is that everyone in the United States has an equal chance to succeed. And I'm sure I have mentioned this in this course before, but I've slept since then, and a lot of other stuff has happened, so I probably have forgotten. But when people like to use the word equality as like a buzzword now, and it's not about equality, it's about equity. And so sure, you can say equality, we all have the same options, we have the same choices now, it's 2020, like, it's great, but that's not true equity. True equity would mean that those of us that we got it, say we were running a race, we all were at the starting line at the same time, and then white men got a 200-year head start on everybody, or 200 plus year head start on everybody, and then finally women were able to go, and then anybody of color. So yes, we are all now, quote unquote, able to run the race, but is it fair? And my argument is absolutely not. And it's not set up that way. Our education system is not set up that way. There are so many factors that push against people in order for them to not have that equal chance to succeed. I mean, it's generational poverty. We look at it that way, and that was something that we heavily focused on at my prior job, where, our target was young Hispanic males that were coming into the college, because we had a very low rate of those students coming into the institution, but once they were here, the success rate was dismal. And so they were trying to figure out how to bridge that gap. And what we learned is a lot of the generational attitudes that are passed down. Basically, it's my mom and dad didn't need college, so I don't need college. Or grandma and grandpa didn't need college, so I don't need college. I need to go work for the family. I need to do this. I need to do that. So the problem with that is if they're not afforded those opportunities and they don't have people pushing them, I'm going to just use myself as an example. Like, I had people in my corner that didn't go to college, but pushed me, made sure that I was doing my applications. I was doing this. I was doing that. And all of us know it's not cheap to apply. It is not cheap to go through the process, especially when you are right out of high school, when you're paying for the ACT, the SAT, TSI maybe, like all the application fees. I can't even remember at this point. But you have to have some semblance of some kind of funding, some type of money in order to do that. So the way that we have that set up is not an equal chance of success for anybody. And my parents, because my best friend in high school had an IQ off the charts, but came from a family that was incredibly poverty stricken and could not afford to do anything. My parents paid for her ACT, her SAT, her application fees, everything. And that's not me trying to say like people, pat my parents on the back. It's just that without that support and without that help, she wouldn't have been able to afford to even start to think about going to college. And so I think that's something that we really need to take like a good long hard look at, because we are not all set up to have an equal chance to succeed. It's just not how it's set up for us. So with bell hooks, I've actually read a lot of bell hooks. Me and my old director used to read quite a bit. And I kind of, the way that she talks about white poverty is very interesting. And I've always thought it's interesting because within social classes, we all have, there's breakdowns of it. And from what she was talking about, there's a difference between white poverty and white trash. And I know that especially, those of us that grew up in the South know exactly what we're talking about when we say, somebody is white trash and versus white poverty. Everybody's poor. In this particular category, everybody's poor, but you didn't act a certain way. And so, I will say one of the things that I working throughout college, I worked retail. I did customer service and I did accounting. And one of the biggest things that I noticed were stereotypes that people had for one another. Anybody that was, on food stamps or was on TANF, anything like that. It was always a stereotype. And amongst even the managers who knew better, they were always stereotyping people based off of that and their race and how they acted. But what I came to find out just from being observant was that the people that fell more into that trash category, it was the people who were really like flaunting certain things or acting certain ways regarding the use of those funds, which, I mean, obviously federal assistance is there for a reason. It's meant to be used, but the way Bell Hooks describes it is, it's literally like flaunting of the need for help, which is kind of, I don't know, I feel like it's somewhat oxymoronic, but it's something that happens in all social classes. It's not just within, African Americans, Hispanics, white people. Like it's every class that we have this, okay, here is such and such poverty, and then here is such and such, lower. It's an attitude and it's a way of thinking and it's a way of acting. So I will say that ableism is a lot to kind of tackle on its own, and social class is definitely a lot to tackle on its own, and them being together, it's kind of hard for me to like put together coherent thoughts. So I really hope y'all understood what I was trying to get at in this. If not, obviously, please ask me a question down below, and I hope you guys have a great day.